Good afternoon. Welcome once again to the Gain Line. Ireland v Wales is just 24 hours away, so it's time to put some necks on the line and predict what's going to happen. Matthew Southcombe is here to do just that, and of course, as ever, we want to hear from you. Please do send us your questions, predictions, comments. Matthew, we had the team yesterday. The Wales team was finally announced. It was the team you were calling for so passionately earlier in the week. Your mate George North on the wing there. Johnny McNichol, poor old Johnny McNichol, dropped to the bench. You naturally think that's the way to go.
Yeah, I think when it came down to the Nick Tompkins had to start in the centre, and then it came down to North and McNichol. You know, regular watchers of the show will have known that I was very strongly in favour of North, and our colleague Ben James was going the other way. And as we said on the game line yesterday, I came out on top in this one. Now it's just a case of the players performing, isn't it? You know, I thought that had to happen just based on how well North played against Italy, in my opinion. And it has happened, so hopefully it's the right decision for Wales.
Indeed, that was the only change in the starting 15, but quite significant change actually on the bench. Gareth Davis coming in, Owen Williams on there, obviously McNichol on the bench, Adam Beard as well with Corey Hill injured, and Rhys Carey, the new people on the bench. There's a lot of impact there, isn't there?
There is plenty of impact. You know, I think it's a blow for Rob Evans. Missed out on the World Cup, had a chance against Italy, and as soon as Carey's ban is lifted, he's straight back onto the bench, and Rob Evans is nowhere to be seen. You know, there's a lot going on with Rob Evans at the moment in terms of, you know, it's a big moment in his career at large, I think, because he's lost his place in the Wales team now. And I'm really interested to see how that transpires for the rest of the tournament. But Carey gets an opportunity to start to come on the bench, as you said, and you know, from what we saw from Carey in the World Cup, in the loose, very good. Same with Leon Brown, as we've seen so far in this campaign. Very good in the loose. We'll come on to the scrummaging later on, I'm sure, but the scrums are going to be a concern throughout. But yeah, Owen Williams is a really interesting one. Perhaps his versatility has seen him through. Yeah,
Jared Evans, of course, dropping out from the bench.
Yeah, and you know, Owen Williams can play 10, 12, probably 13 if he needed to as well. So that bit of versatility just helps him. Also, he's a bigger bloke. It's going to be a physical match. You know, on the podcast in the past, I've referenced Jared Evans' size is counting against him. I don't think that's the only reason this change has taken place, but I think it certainly helps Owen Williams. He's a bit more physical, and you know, going to Dublin, you know what's going to come. It's going to be brutal. It's going to be physical, and Wales are going to have to front up.
He's sounding like Eddie Jones. Gareth Davis as well. Rhys Webb was obviously on the bench, came on last week. Some people thought he was quite good. Other people thought he looked like a player who hadn't played international rugby for a couple of years. But that's an expected change with Gareth Davis now fit, I suppose.
Yeah, absolutely. And like you said, I think you hit the nail on the head. It's probably a guy who hasn't played international rugby for a long time. Or any rugby in recent weeks and months. You know, we all know what's gone on at Toulon. Hasn't had a lot of rugby under his belt, and perhaps that came across in his performance a little bit. There were a few mistakes in there from Rhys Webb, and I'm sure they'll be ironed out with a couple more games under his belt as they go. But you know, Gareth Davis has done nothing wrong really in a Welsh jersey for a long time, and you know, now he's fit, he probably deserves to be involved ahead of Rhys Webb. And it kind of comes back to this whole thing where Rhys is going to have to earn his place in this side. It's not just going to be handed to him.
Yeah. Okay, thanks Matt. We'll leave it there for now. Now me and Matt are by ourselves today because our colleagues Ben James and Simon Thomas are among the Welsh contingent heading to Dublin. They are at the airport. They're getting on a flight in about 30 minutes, I think, and Ben has just sent us this report from Bristol Airport.
Okay, so it's that time of year for the biannual pilgrimage to Dublin. Me and yourself, Simon, who are here at Bristol Airport. I was sort of set the task of trying to find a Welshman going to Dublin, which turned out to be a lot harder than it looked. Right, so we're here at Bristol Airport. We've found some Welsh fans. Didn't have to look hard, just went to the bar and here they are. So is it your first time out to Dublin, or you come every year? You actually didn't turn out the way I was expecting it to. They said they gave me one job: find someone who's going to Dublin, and this is the first person I spoke to going to Benidorm. I think you guys are doing it right. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm packing extra socks and pants in case I get stranded in Dublin Airport on Sunday, but I think you guys have got the right idea. Right, so after what feels like hours of searching, I have finally found some Welshmen who are going to Dublin for the weekend. We've had Benidorm, Belfast, Cork, Galway, but you are Welsh fans going to Dublin.
So via Belfast, though.
It counts. It counts.
At this
stage today, it counts. So this is your first time out to Dublin, or is this a biannual trip?
Many times. I met my wife there many years ago.
How are you feeling for the weekend? Obviously, it's a new regime. It's a new sort of Wales. Excited or nervous?
Always a great trip, but I think it's been a good start for Wayne Privac. He's had a good sort of an easier start to come into it, really, with the Barbars match and the Italy match. But now's the big test. Going to Ireland's always going to be very difficult.
In the wet.
In the wet and the wind, yeah.
That's the thing. Have you boys packed extra pants and socks? Because
some of
are we
Put some extra pants for Nigel in.
I won't touch that. But I'm not sure we're going to get back Sunday. The weather forecast.
These boys all got spare shoes in.
Our last person's gone over on the ferry, and he's delayed his ferry till Monday because Sunday's looking very ropey on.
So let's end with some score predictions. What do we think?
32-20 Wales.
Like that.
I was going to say that. 32-20 Wales.
21-12.
I think only Ben could be given a simple task and end up speaking to a group of women heading to Benidorm for the week. But there we go. They mentioned the lads there at the end, the weather we talked about, which is going to be a big factor this weekend, certainly on Sunday, and for Saturday for the game. It doesn't look great. A school of thought is that favours Ireland. Is that right?
I think so, yeah. Wayne Pivac said he's expecting a stormy day on more than one front. In reference to the weather, it always seems to be wet and windy when Wales go to Dublin. But yeah, it does favour Ireland, I think. I was there 2 years ago when Wales were bullied up front, lost the physical battle and ultimately lost the game. It's going to be a similar challenge this week, I think. We've got to be careful with the language we use at the moment. I know it's a hot topic. We'll keep it all in context, but it is going to be a very physical day for Wales, and Ireland are going to look to try and do the same job that they did on them 2 years ago. Now it's down to Wales to accept that challenge, to front up, because if Wales get a platform up front, the back line should be good enough to do a job, I think. But it all comes down to what sort of platform Thomas Williams and Dan Biggar get. If it is as wet and windy as they are anticipating, and Ireland get in front, as Mike Phillips said in his column today. Mike was on fire today, read it if you haven't. If Ireland get in front and the crowd get into it, it's going to be a long day. We saw it with Wales in Cardiff last year. Wales got in front early and Ireland never had a prayer. So if Sexton puts Ireland 3-6, 9-0 ahead, then it becomes a very difficult afternoon. So the game is not going to be won for Wales in that first 20 minutes, but they can certainly lose it.
Yeah, how do Wales stop what they couldn't stop 2 years ago then? It was the power around the fringes, wasn't it? Just short ball. I think they scored 4 tries, pretty much all from just that power at the game.
Just around the fringes, yeah. Well, that's right. And, when it's coming, it should be easy to stop because you know what's coming. But Ireland, and you see it with Leinster as well. You know what's coming with these teams, but stopping it is another thing entirely. If things are done right, they're very difficult to stop. I think the key is just trying to keep them under wraps in that first 20 minutes. It's all about momentum for me. You see quotes from Johnny Sexton today actually saying that he felt like the stadium was a little bit flat before the Scotland game. Now that should be music to the Welsh players' ears, because if they can try and achieve something similar to that like Scotland did, because there were question marks then over whether Ireland were in the right emotional state for that game. You've got to hit your right sort of, it's a fine line between being too up for it and not up for it. So if Wales can keep the crowd quiet for that first 20 minutes and stop any momentum Ireland try and get, and in fact if Halfpenny and Biggar can put Wales on the scoreboard early, I think that will play a huge role in it.
Yeah, let's talk about the breakdown then. It was a key area of any match. And Wales, we saw against Italy, seemed to be employing a new tactic very much from the Sam Warburton playbook.
Yes.
I think, explain to us exactly what's happening at the breakdown and how Wales won. I think it was 3 penalties against Italy using it.
Yeah, so we've seen this thing. We've seen teams use it in the past. I haven't seen Wales use it a great deal in the last 2 years when I've been covering them quite closely. But when you see a player in a jackal position over the ball, opposition ball, it was Dylan Lewis twice, I think, and Nick Tompkins was the other one. You see the supporting player identify that guy is in the ruck. And instead of which often happens, you get a player to the side screaming at the referee asking for a penalty when his teammate's over the ball. They've been going in behind and almost putting their shoulder on the backside of their teammate who's in it just to reinforce it. Aaron Wainwright has spoken about this week as well to Andy Howell, our colleague. Yeah. And they call it anchoring. And he said Sam's brought that back in to camp, obviously in his role as a breakdown specialist. Now it just reinforces that player who's in the jackal. And we know Ireland are going to be really good at the breakdown. So, hopefully it worked for Wales last weekend. Ireland will be better there than Italy were, but if he wins a couple more penalties, then Sam's earning his corn.
Yeah, absolutely. Just a couple of comments then along the same lines from Wayne here, who's just said this game is pivotal for Pivac and for the Six Nations, and must win. I'm confident an early try he wants and keep pushing, especially at the breakdown. He says, well, what about the scrum then? Because that's, like I said, we've talked in detail after the Italy game about the troubles. An interesting piece one of our colleagues did with Adam Jones this week on the scrum, and he thinks it'll come. He rates Wyn Jones very highly, and Wales, they're putting it down more to the ref's interpretation last week than any significant problem.
Yeah, well, I'm certainly not going to disagree with Adam Jones when it comes to scrummaging. It's funny because we had a similar issue before the World Cup, didn't we? The scrums before the World Cup were in a bad place. They got turned over in pretty much all 4 of the warm-up matches, and I remember Thomas Francis getting a little bit spiky with me in an interview before the Georgia game when we were trying to get to the bottom of what the issue was. But on that occasion as well, they felt like the referee's interpretation was going against them, and they managed to sort it out. They had Georgia first in the World Cup, renowned for their scrummaging, no problems, and that continued throughout the tournament. So there's every reason to believe that they can set this straight. I know it's probably slightly different personnel, different coaching staff certainly, but you give them the benefit of the doubt for now, because it's one game. It could have been Luke Pearce's interpretation of the scrum. If it happens again on Saturday, it does threaten to undermine their challenge in terms of winning the match, and also then you start to run out of excuses, if you will. So it's going to be interesting. If that scrum is sorted, then great, but if it's not, they're not going to be able to blame the interpretation of the referee again.
No, indeed. Okay, 2 more questions then that may be tying together. David asks, who are the key head-to-heads tomorrow? And another one from Craig, who's better, Biggar or Sexton? Maybe let's
start in, I think.
Let's start very well. Let's start with the Biggar and Sexton head-to-head. If you were a Lions coach right now and you had a 10 jersey to dish out and they were the only 2 fit, who would you hand it to?
Well, that's on the spot, John. It's close. Obviously, those 2 are going to play a huge role in the outcome of this game. There's going to be some stuff coming out later on which is under embargo from the Wales camp, but tonight an interview with Dan Biggar talking about this similar subject, and those 2 have been probably the I suppose George Ford has flitted in and out, but those 2 have been the premier outside halves in Europe for a long time. Both ultimate competitors, both struggle to keep their mouths shut at times, and they'll admit that themselves, I'm sure. Sexton didn't get a look in last year, and it went Wales' way. You see him frustrated throwing the ball.
He was awful in Cardiff.
It was one of the worst performances I've seen him play. Conversely, when he's on song, he wins games for Ireland, as we saw last weekend in the Scotland game. I'm still not nailing any colours to the mast here.
No.
I think given the way both players are operating at the moment, I would edge towards Biggar purely because I feel like his game is trending upwards at the moment. I think he's almost like a second coming of Dan Biggar at the moment. Little resurgence, excellent at the World Cup, playing some brilliant rugby at Northampton, and that's translating into his Wales performances. So just purely on the basis, I think Biggar's upward curve is slightly bigger than Sexton's at the moment. I would lean towards Dan Biggar.
Okay. Anywhere else? The centre battle's going to be interesting. Obviously, Nick Tompkins thrusting in. You've got 2 very experienced, good players in Bundy Aki and Henshaw as well, haven't you, for Ireland?
Yeah, the centres is going to be a big battle, and as we've discussed, Nick Tompkins is coming from Saracens, who are not exactly adverse to playing in big matches against some of the best players in the world. So he's not going to be overawed by the challenge in front of him. He's probably played against Robbie Henshaw before in massive European games, perhaps. Don't quote me, I don't know if that's true, but I'm sure they will have come across each other before. Bundy Aki, again, great player, can be kept quiet though, he was quiet against Wales. So, that's going to be a big battle, but I would look more towards the scrum halves. I think the 2 half-backs, fly half is one key battle, scrum half is another one. 2 fiery characters in there. Thomas Williams is no shrinking violet. Conor Murray, with all his experience, can put Ireland in the right positions kicking-wise, especially if it's a bad day. In terms of the weather, so I would look at the scrum half and the fly half battles as being key, because you've got to be in the right areas when the weather's terrible.
Okay, let's get the neck on the line. What's gonna happen? Who's gonna win?
Well, I stick to my guns. We've submitted our predictions, and they should be going online later today. I think I put 23-15 to Wales. I think purely because Wales, I believe, have more capacity to score tries. Like I said, if they get parity up front, their backline, I believe, is a little more dangerous. I don't think we saw everything against Italy as well. There may be some things up their sleeves. They talk about the weather coming in and if that's going to affect their style of play, but they're adamant that they're going to be positive. And if it's there to be played in front of them, they're going to play. And that's exciting. You can't overplay, which they did at times against Italy, but I think where Wales are at right now, I think they're in a good place. They beat Italy well, didn't concede a try, but still had things to work on. Whereas Ireland beat Scotland, but only just, if you know what I mean. They're not in a great place. So just based on the mood of the two camps at the moment, I'd go with Wales. I'll stick to my predictions. I know not all my colleagues agree with that.
No, it's quite a split actually. I was going to say quite a split. Half of them going for tight all round, but half of them thinking Ireland will just nip it home.
Yeah, I mean that's fair enough. I know I've gone for 8 points is a relatively large margin in games like this, and that's quite bold of me. But like I said, I think it comes down to I believe Wales have got capacity to score tries in Dublin, and as Mike Phillips has said in his column, if Wales win in Ireland, then he thinks they'll go on to win the Six Nations. So that's how big this game is.
Indeed, good times ahead. Hopefully, let's finish quickly then with predictions for the other two games this weekend. Scotland, England. It's got all the. It's going to be a classic. It's got everything, isn't it? Lots of talk beforehand. Nobody seems to like each other.
Yeah.
There's wars, brutality, etc., etc. But it's a game Eddie Jones cannot afford to lose, isn't it?
No, I mean, if they lose that, then the championship threatens to spiral out of control. I mean, you saw the backlash after the France game. If they lose this as well, then it's going to be quite tasty. I don't think they will lose, though. I think they'll steady the ship. I don't think it'll be a convincing win by any stretch. I don't think they're going to cut loose or anything like that. Scotland are going to obviously stay in the fight because they get up for this game more than most. So I think it'll be tight, but I think England are going to, backs to the wall. They'll probably get a victory that they really do need up in Murrayfield.
Okay, and France, Italy, probably no surprises what you're going to say about this one. France looked very good last week. Italy looked very poor against Wales, didn't they? And you'd imagine a similar kind of result. Yeah,
you would. It's not going to be. It shouldn't be a tough afternoon for France. As you said, we saw Italy against Wales. They weren't great, and I agree. France were probably put in the performance of the first round, didn't they? Even though England came back into it, but yeah, you wouldn't be risking too much by backing France. I wouldn't have thought, and I'd be surprised if they don't claim a bonus point.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks, Matt. We'll leave it there for today. Thank you for joining us. As always, thanks for all your comments and questions. You can follow the game live with us tomorrow on Wales Online, and we'll be back after the match right here. We'll see you then.